Sri Lanka is ambitious, fun, fierce, fabulous, free-spirited, breathtaking, connecting, soaring, winning. Sri Lanka is fearless, curious, full of action, passion, fusion, fashion, vision. She means business. She is determination, timeless, full of kindness, luxurious, magical. Sri Lanka is art. Sri Lanka is craft. Sri Lanka is heart. Sri Lanka is a feeling. She's healing. A love story, a lifetime story, a brand new story. Earth's favorite island is ready for you. So wild, so pure, so vibrant, so natural, so majestic. So Sri Lanka.
Good morning. Welcome to Daily Mirror and to this online discussion with regards to the tourism industry. Let's do a small test and see if our panelists are on and if they can hear me. Kimali, are we good?
Yes.
Harpo, hi. Harpo, I think you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you.
Good.
Dilip, hi.
I can hear you. Hi.
Okay. And Mahen?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. So a very good morning to you. Welcome to this online session hosted by Daily Mirror, where we hope to discuss the way forward for the tourism industry in Sri Lanka. As you know, the industry has taken a severe beating as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. We have had 3 waves, and now there's also talk of a 4th wave. So in today's discussion titled Tourism, the Way Forward, we look back at the impact the pandemic has had on the industry, the current state of the industry, and the way forward. Just a reminder that this discussion is being live streamed via the Daily Mirror website, on Daily Mirror Facebook, and also on the Daily Mirror YouTube page. Today we have an elite panel to discuss our topic. Let me introduce you to our 4 panelists. Taking part in the discussion today is Kimali Fernando, the chairperson of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority. Good morning, Kimali. We also have Dilip Mudadenia, representing the Hotel Association of Sri Lanka. Good to have you, Dilip. We also have Harpo Gunaratna, president of the Colombo City Restaurant Collective. Hi, Harpo.
Morning.
And also Mahen Karyavasam, the immediate past president of the Sri Lanka Association of Inbound Tour Operators. Morning, Mahen.
Morning.
So a warm welcome to all of you. We also have a number of people following this discussion from the hotel and travel sector, as well as the media. Those of you who are joining us via Zoom, we will be taking your questions later on. If you would like to pose a question, please click on the raise hand option, and we will give you the opportunities to speak. For those of you following the discussion via Daily Mirror, the Facebook page, you can also post your questions as a comment, and we will pick your questions and pass it on to our panelists. So let's get started. To kick things off, I would like to invite our 4 panelists to make a brief opening statement. Firstly, let me invite Kimali Fernando, chairperson of the Sri Lanka Development Authority, to share a few words. Kimali, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. As you know, last year, March, the airport was closed for international travelers. And January this year, we opened after a pilot project. We opened on the 21st of January for international travelers with quite strict regulations indicated by the Ministry of Health. Now, without looking too much to the past, but looking at today, the government is on a, as most of you know, that we are on an accelerated vaccination program now with about 5.7 million vaccinations already given. If you look at the population of Sri Lanka, which is about 21.9 million, the intention is, the plan and the action is to have 50% of the population, basically 30 years and above. That's about 11.4 million people to be vaccinated by September, right? So the government's plan is that 100% of Colombo will be vaccinated actually this month, and Western province to be vaccinated by August. So this is significant because it will give confidence first to our Sri Lankans and also to the international traveler going forward. So that's basically how that works with the vaccination. And I think that's a game changer for all countries, not only Sri Lanka. Of course, as you know, some countries we have banned ourselves, like for example, India, South America, South Africa, we have banned. There are some countries who have actually said, do not travel kind of to our country as well. So we hope that with the vaccinations that we would all together as an industry can convince those governments as well to permit us to have tourists coming over to our country. With regards very quickly to the health guidelines, the health guidelines are evolving and it's changing. And trust me, a lot of work from myself and my complete team has been taken to coordinate with the health authorities. Some things we cannot negotiate with them. So because as per the quarantine law, they are the decision maker. So we work with them, we convince them that we are responsible, and several guidelines have been issued. Now, for example, event management, we are still negotiating how to assist them, including I spoke to one of the key stakeholders in the industry recently. So we are trying to assist them. Still, there are, now the 7th of July, there was a new guideline, but still there are some constraints with regards to PCR tests done for vaccinated passengers. We are aware of those constraints. We are working on them. Kids having to get the PCR test done, this is another constraint. So we continuously sort of follow up on them and with them and try to, we also have to act responsibility, and then only we gain the respect. So it's both ways. Visiting sites, there's a challenge with regards to where you can visit and so on. We are working with the various stakeholders. Not everything is within the decision making or jurisdiction, if you like, of tourism. So we need to coordinate when wildlife is willing to open and so on. CCF has already informed us when they will open. Financial support, lastly, before I hand over, is that we, I've been working with the central bank and so on with regards to moratoriums and so on. It hasn't worked as well as we wanted it to, because the decision making is with the banking system, but we continue to have a dialogue. Several benefits and support was given, but it's not enough considering what the industry has gone through to 2019 to 20 with the COVID. Perhaps maybe I should also add that looking forward, we are looking to Sri Lankan Airlines is going to launch a buy one, get one free soon, together with the industry for majority of the flights that they're going to operate, excluding Russia. And would be for foreign passport holders. They would roll it out gradually, depending on which countries are open. So for example, Germany, they would roll out, Middle East, some countries they would roll out. So gradually roll out to some of the other countries. So the industry stakeholders are working to come up with kind of a package so that when they do finalize that, we would together with them launch that. With regards to returning Sri Lankan diaspora, we believe is another key market now with the relaxed, somewhat relaxed health guidelines. From the 7th of July, we believe that the return in Sri Lankan expats would be really valuable. For them, they spend a lot, they stay longer, and so on. And of course, the Russia, CIS countries who are willing to travel, able to travel, who don't have a lot of options at the moment, except Maldives, I think, because Indonesia, Bali, Thailand, Philippines are limited openings. And lastly, Air France, which you all know, is thinking of flying to Sri Lanka in November. Also, French market is important. Actually, they brought in about 100,000 tourists to Sri Lanka. That's about almost 5%, 4.5% of tourists. So those are areas, you saw in the media today about digital nomads. That's a cabinet paper which we did. But there again, there are things that we need to improve a little bit also, increase the bandwidth to really leverage on that. And then we are in touch with immigration, asking them exactly when it will be launched. We have also got a cabinet approval for extended tourist visas. So extended tourist visa is one, and digital nomad 1-year visa is another. So those are so I will leave you with that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Kimali. Next, I would like to invite Dilip Mudadania from representing the Hotel Association of Sri Lanka. Dilip, if you could share some thoughts.
Yes, thank you, Iswaran and the Daily Mirror for giving us a chance for the inviting Hotel Association to have views as one of the leading associations in the country. So I would approach this in 3 ways. I think the one, when you're looking at the reopening strategy, obviously we need to go out there and ensure that we promote the country in respective country markets, which has an appeal, etc. Second is basically looking at the on entry protocols and the local logistics and the arrangements that actually has to be arranged from the time of airport arrival, going to the respective sites, the transportation, make it easy and make it more convincing for travelers to come in. The relaxation is also good. It has to be relaxed to a point where people will feel it that it's actually good enough to visit. The third point is basically from the members' perspective as well, what we are going through in terms of the hotels. So as you know, any destination has, when you're promoting tourism, we call 4 A's. Those 4 A's have to be in place. The first one, we call it the amenities. The amenities means that you need to have various activities which goes along with the destination, maybe dining, maybe excursions, maybe sites, etc. The other one is basically the attractions. The attractions needs to be there in the destination for people to visit and see. They can be man-made attraction or they can be even natural attractions. Then the third one is accessibility, which is basically people have to come. Being an island nation, people should be able to come easily to the destination. And the fourth one, which I'm going to stress a little bit, is the accommodation. So those are 4 A's that one should have in a destination. So we need to ensure that all 4 A's are actually in place to a manner in which is conducive for them to travel. So where the accommodation is concerned, as you know, Sri Lankan hotel sector has gone through a huge amount of challenges, starting from 2019, the Eastern bomb attack, and then later on, when we were about to come up with that, again, the corona came in, COVID-19. So as a result, currently, it is very important that the representations have already made various discussions with the government to restructure the debt that we have. So which includes basically requests that, in the waiver of the interest for the 3 years, starting from 2019, going about 2022 financial year, complete waiver of the initial, the interest that we have for all the loans, existing loans. That's number one. And number two is that we also have estimated amount 350 billion rupee loans that are being dispersed by various commercial banks and the government banks to the private sector, to the leisure sector. And this needs to be restructured and in various ways. So that needs to take place in order for us, the hotels, to come back and promote and then actually be actively involved. The third one is these hotels, as you know very well, all the hoteliers, we also will know, when you close down a hotel for 2-3 months, forget about 1.5 to 2 years, obviously it will actually add a lot of maintenance costing to that. The hotels have been closed for nearly a year and a half now, and there's a lot of maintenance work that needs to be done. There's a soft refurbishment needs to be in place. So in order the destination to be actually a little bit of higher end destination, or at least to command a premium to service the formal sector, we need this amount of support that needs to come in to look at kind of a soft loan scheme as well for the hoteliers. So these are 3 things that parallel to all this, we have to look at it, because it's, as I mentioned, the 4 A's are important to the destination, not only the accessibility, not only the amenities, not only the attractions, but the accommodation sector as well. So having said that, the Hotel Association members are actually also the members who are paying a lot of taxes in the formal sector, and we're also adding a lot of value to the employment creation, as well as the backward integration of the economy in terms of buying vegetables and various other backward integration with the rest of the areas of the economy. So this is something to look at it in the first place. So second, I think I mentioned, which is covered also about the overseas promotion that needs to be done in a more organized manner, where actually we can move into the key markets. Chairperson mentioned about France. There are France coming in, the Russian market charters that are coming in. So we need to aggressively be there as well. And then, of course, the keeping in mind the responsibility as well in terms of the relaxation of the local guidelines that are there for tourists, which have been greatly appreciated so far, the steps that have been taken. And there are a few more to be adjusted. If those can be done, I think we are ready to a great year ahead and to move on from there.
Thanks, Dilip. Thank you so much. Next, I would like to open the floor to Harpo. Harpo, I think you're muted though.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for Daily Mirror for inviting the CCRC Association to be a part of this very important panel discussion. And what I like to emphasize here is, I'll very briefly tell you, everybody knows what has happened to us over the last, from 2019, that the industry is kind about it, like Kimali said, let's try to keep the past, keep it behind now and move forward. But yes, from 2019, we had a big impact on the restaurant industry, and that took about till November. It really started picking up for us, and then of course March it hit us again. But as an industry, we are a body of about 55 to 60 people now who are part of the association, and obviously one of our cries have been for the last 1.5 years is the problem that we have had is the restaurants have been shut down, and we have had a huge impact on jobs, plus cash flows, which I'll be very honest, and also being able to, for our staff to adjust accordingly, because also it will be very traumatic for the staff going through all this thing, and COVID-1, COVID-2, COVID-3, we have maneuvered ourselves out knowing what we didn't know what COVID-1 was, what it was going to be like. But luckily we have learned a lot, through failure, you learn a lot of new things, So we are happy to be able to learn to manage a lot of things, from cash flows to dealing with suppliers, to dealing with landlords, to dealing with, staffing, as I said before. But these things are new to us, and we have managed to cope with it. I must say that the health authorities have given us guidelines to work with, and we did lobby for the opening recently, which we are very grateful to the government and to the industry to allow us, the restaurants, to open once again after a lapse of 2 months. And we had to make an appeal because, we were going into dire straits actually, because, it was too much for us to cope up with. And now we see people coming through. We have been given a 25% occupancy per property, which I think that's a good start, and we must be grateful for that. And as you see, the restaurant industry plays a huge impact in the tourism sector for the simple practice. You look at any country like Singapore, Malaysia, wherever, the restaurant business is the booming business. You go to any country, people step out to the restaurant to see what the vibe is, what the local feel is, And we are happy to be able to now have that coming through at least for the locals right now. Like Kimali said earlier, hopefully we'll have the Sri Lankan expats coming in, because I'm sure a lot of those people want to come back to Sri Lanka, and that's going to help the industry a lot. Financially, we were hit big time, and we have made representations to the government and the central bank on the moratoriums as well, where some of the members of the association have gone for moratoriums, but obviously with the lockdowns, they are obviously having cash flow issues there. So hopefully those are going to work out. And we also look forward to, once tourists come back, all these beautiful restaurants, all these lovely sites, the archaeological sites we have in Sri Lanka and especially Colombo, that we will have people coming back and patronizing our restaurants. Don't forget, we have a few restaurants and bars which are world-renowned bars, or some of Asia's top restaurants and bars. So we have something to offer everybody who's coming through. And we look forward to that. And of course, we also have to be more flexible when it comes to, as I said, okay, we are grateful for the 25%, but we need to open up, and and I don't understand why the government does they don't realize there's nothing called a bar license or a nightclub license or a karaoke license. When the health authorities come up and say bars are closed, karaoke bars are closed, it doesn't make sense, because there's nothing called a bar license, So these are little things the health authorities need to understand, because those are the things which we need to open up as well. Right now, we have been told we can't open up a bar. And, so those are little things. Obviously, someone will have to advise them, or if we are there, we can advise them. But saying that, yes, the restaurants are, for the last 2 weeks, things have picked up. And we look forward to welcoming people back into our restaurants. Thank you.
Thank you, Harper, for sharing your thoughts. Next, I would like to invite Mahen Karyavasan from the Sri Lanka Association of Inbound Tour Operators. Mahen, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Iswaran, and thank you, Daily Mirror, for inviting Slido for this important webinar. We appreciate it very much. Just to give a small introduction to Slido. Slido is the apex body for inbound tourism. In Sri Lanka, we got about 200 members of DMCs. We also have an alliance with the One Industry, One Voice, which is an association of about 15 trade associations together, where we come in for our common issues. Slido engages around 11,500 people in our industry directly. And of course, we have 3 million people depending on tourism in the country altogether. And it's a $4.5 billion industry for the country. At the moment, our major issue, one of the major issues we have is the sustainability of our industry. We are very thankful to the government for extending all these moratoriums and other credit facilities. The minister himself has taken a lot of initiative in this regard, and also the chairperson of SLTDA, I must say. But of course, we are expecting that we could have a credit line to sustain ourselves going forward, because we don't see a growth where we can come to the figures of 2018 back again for the next 1 year to 1.5 years. So it will be difficult for all our members to sustain ourselves if we don't have a credit line with some kind of grace period to come up for the next, let's say, 1.5 to 2 years. So we are looking forward for that. There's a lot of talk going on about it with the central bank and with the other banks, the world banks, and all these financial institutions. That's one. The second point is, I would say, we have to also develop a positive perception among the locals, because at the moment, the locals unfortunately has the idea that tourism brought COVID to Sri Lanka. Unfortunately, this is a big issue at the moment, whereas it was not. We had about 17,000 tourists that came between January and June, and out of which only around 120 cases were positive, and there was no anyone who got into the society or something like that with COVID. So this is another thing that we have to make people understand. I know Sri Lanka Tourism is going on with the campaign. We as Slido also have started a campaign to educate the local people the importance of tourism into the economy. Going forward with the promotions and also with the guidelines, I must say we should have a more friendly guideline system, the methodology of making a booking. At the moment, we have a little bit of a cumbersome system where a person who wants to visit Sri Lanka has to first log into the ETA, then he has to give us a number, and then we have to go make a hotel booking, that's okay. Then we have to make the payment in dollars for the 2 PCR tests to the SLTDA, and they have to confirm to immigration that the client is booked and he has the money for the PCR and the insurance has been received. And all this process takes about 2 to 3 working days. So, and it doesn't work in the weekend as well. So we have a lot of issues like that. So I think if you have to attract more people into the country, we should have a more simpler way of doing things, where we could pay directly to the hospitals, which is much cheaper as well for a DMC to do that, and a much quicker way to do it. And I think this PCR test, we are very happy the health department has relaxed last week the PCR regulation, the protocol regulations. But we still see that the fully vaccinated traveler has to do another PCR after 7 days of his journey into Colombo. So he does one PCR before he checks into the aircraft, one on arrival, one after 7 days, and one on departure. And in some countries like Russia, for example, you have to do another PCR when you get back to Russia. So I think these kind of steps have to be erased. And I think we have to recognize the international vaccine certificate when people come into the country, of course, keeping in line with the priority being the health of the local people. But I think a lot of things have changed, a lot of things are evolving. So I guess going forward, we have to look into this, and also to have, as Chairperson was saying, I was very happy to hear that some of the sites will be open soon. The wildlife parks, the Anuradhapura Candy Temple, and so on are closed at the moment. So I hope this will be open going forward, because at the moment only Polonnaru and Sigiri are open on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I think it's difficult for us to promote a country when we have such a lot of regulations. So we need to ease all these regulations. And I would urge the SFTD also to be more friendlier towards the DMCs and the industry, rather than trying to control everything. For example, if I have a client going from Colombo to Kandy, we have to send an email. We have to inform him what time he goes to Kandy, what time, where will he stop, and so on. I think all those things are now not necessary after the vaccine process has come, and the locals have also been vaccinated. We are very happy also to know that the locals in the industry are also being vaccinated right now as we speak. So that's a good sign. So I think we have to go and we have to make it more friendlier for the client to come, because a client coming all the way, spending all his money, wouldn't want to be locked up in a hotel or locked up in one place without moving. So I think that is another crucial point. The last thing is, of course, the minister has initiated some special promotions. We are very happy that Sri Lankan Airlines has come on board, offering the buy one, get one free initiative. We are waiting for confirmation from the Hotels Association about the same facility and the other cultural triangle and safari parks and so on. So I hope that will get off the ground. That will be operative maybe for 1 or 2 months to give some incentive for the traveler to come in. So let's hope. And Air France coming in 3 times a week from November also is a positive sign. So little by little things are opening up. So we hope that things will look brighter in the coming months. But it won't be a big influx altogether. It will work out very slowly, I guess. Thank you.
Thanks, Mahen. Thank you to all our panelists also for their opening remarks. Just a reminder, I see a lot of questions already popping up on Zoom as well as on Facebook. We will be taking your questions in a few minutes. But before that, I would just like to maybe get into a small discussion with our panelists. And if I may ask you, Kimali, about some of the comments that were made so far by our fellow panelists on maybe easing the system in the future, making it more comfortable for tourists to come into Sri Lanka and enjoy our facilities. Is that something that that the Tourism Development Authority and the Tourism Ministry is looking at?
Actually, we need to first understand the reality. This is a health pandemic, so the decision, how many PCRs, quarantine period is decided by health. And I think that sometimes we get confused. So the health will tell you, I may not agree with all the PCR tests, but that's the regulation that health tells us, okay? So for example, if you're a vaccinated passenger, today he has to do, before he comes, of course, most airlines ask him for that. Then on arrival, which is, I think, fine, but then they ask him for 7 days. And that's a challenge because the client has left your hotel after 24 hours. So where do you find the client? So we have addressed those with health because it's impossible even for us as to monitor that. So first, we have to understand health makes the guideline on a number of PCR tests, and we are the messenger, so don't kill the messenger. So point 1. With regards to PCR test, what do we have to pay before, and why can't we pay the hotel, the hospital, and all this kind of a question. is that as per the health guidelines, a PCR test costs and insurance costs is a pre-requirement to get a visa. It's in the health guidelines. Okay, so health guidelines says you have to get X amount of PCR tests and insurance for $12. At the moment, it's $12, right? So that's a requirement of the health guidelines. Then how do we as regulator implement it? We can't just say, oh, no, somebody likes to pay rupees, somebody wants to do this, somebody likes to do that. No. That is the first point. Second point, that so that has to be very clear in everyone's mind, right? So we did not say that we want PCR test paid before as a visa requirement. So how do you do the visa requirement is that you have to book your hotel wherever, whichever method you wish, whether it is online, whether it is a travel agent, whether it is hotel directly. We do not get involved. All we are saying to the guest is, with the bio bubble concept I'm talking, is that if you're vaccinated or not vaccinated, you apply for your visa, and a prerequisite of your visa is that you should have paid for PCR tests and insurance and booked a hotel in whichever manner where you want to book it, right? So when we got the safe travel stamp from the World Travel Council, the guidelines we gave, that's one of the reasons we got that even before Maldives. We were awarded the safe travel stamp because of the travel bubble concept. Now the good news is, of course, with the vaccinated passengers, they can leave in 24 hours. Right? So they can leave in 24 hours. So then after that, they are like you and me. They are part of the community. With regards to not vaccinated passenger, they will continue to have to remain in the bio bubble, right? With regards to the dollar, why are you charging dollars and why not rupees? That is again because they have to pay for that before they come to Sri Lanka. It's part of the protocol, okay? So why $40 and not $20 and not $50 or about $100? I mean, Europe, there is $95 pounds and so on. It is because we had Honorable Minister, we had a meeting with all the health authorities, that is who are authorized labs. There were at that time 5, and they were quoting all sorts of rates. Some quoted 6.5, some quoted 7.5, some quoted 7.5 plus PPE and transport, some quoted depending on the location and all sorts of things. So everyone wants to do like the nice parts, but then no one wants to go to all over the country. So with the Honorable Minister's leadership, we agreed with and also the health ministry officials were also there. The health ministry official actually specifically in charge of the private laboratories was there. And then it was discussed and agreed that we would charge $40 because it was roughly at that time, the exchange rate was about 7,500, right? So we organized that. Then we got relevant board approvals and we have got relevant secretaries, our secretary's approval to do that. Right? So it is not something it's like a figment of our things that we just decided some figure and did it. The advantage there is that then therefore everywhere in the country, because then the tourist applies. I can't say if you're going to Colombo charge $32, if you're going to Kandy charge $38, if you're going to Norelia charge $40. It's not practical for me, right? So we have to give one rate, and the exchange difference, appreciation or depreciation. Currently Sri Lankan rupee is depreciating. So there's a balance, but if it appreciates or depreciates, the balance is kept in a fund in our institution, not that any of us are taking it and going home. It's kept in our institution as per the approval we have got. We are keeping it a separate account and it will be used. So I think that's a little bit like a misunderstanding about it, that this is our idea that we want to get PCR tests and insurance done before. And I honestly totally agree with health on this, that we must make sure that the guest who's coming has paid for insurance and PCR. If you please look at Thailand, the prices are way higher than ours, way higher. So I don't think we should just talk about so much, like I see like letters written and so much media discussion on this $40. If we are so worried about $40, this is really concerning, right? And somebody has asked the question, $35 about the visa fees for the 1 year. What is the visa fee? I'm seeing on chat. To answer your question is that current visa fees is $35, right? And we have asked immigration to please give the same rate if they can for 6 months for tourists. We have requested that. Okay, so we met the Defense Secretary as well, and we have requested that. We are waiting for their response. We just asked just for 6 months, give us $35 for 6 months. That decision is their decision, not ours to make. However, we have made the request. With regards to digital nomad, it was approved only yesterday in the cabinet. So we still don't know what immigration will charge for the 1-year visa. The moment we are informed, we will for sure keep the industry informed.
Are we, Kimali, are we also looking at the option of allowing fully vaccinated tourists coming into the country without undergoing quarantine?
Yes, absolutely. That's what I also think so. But am I the DG Health? I'm not. So what we have to do is we have to convince them to, because I have to tell the industry also one thing is that we've had people with vaccination also, a few who came through tourism also who's been positive. Not a lot, but it has happened. So what all health is asking for is that we should do a PCR. I mean, what's on the flight is a flight airline requirement also. But arrival PCR, I think it's important to do. Okay, so I also agree with them. But the only one I'm not quite convinced is the one that they're saying to do on the 7th day, where the guest is in the community. How do we as the regulator even find them? We don't know where they are because they are part of the community. So that's actually, we've written to them about this and spoken to them, met them. So let's see, we will follow up closely on that.
Sorry. Dilip, thanks, Kimali. Dilip, I was wondering if I can switch over to you, if you are there. Yes. With the pandemic, we saw a lot of hotels depending on the local tourism industry. We had the hotels were trying to sustain with local tourists. Is this something that was, somewhat viable or fruitful for the hotel industry?
I think the importance of the domestic market shouldn't be I think it's not underestimated by anyone at all. And it's a very, very important market. And the local market actually comes in 3 ways. If it is for the resorts, it's looking at basically 3 areas. The resorts mainly coming from the leisure traveler coming on the weekend. If it is the city is concerned, it comes in more corporate, as well as your non-resident food and beverage guests. Those are the 3 things that basically we are looking at it, where the impact of the local domestic travel is concerned. And this is very, very important. But whether this is enough, no, this is not sufficient, especially when it comes to resort hotels. We have to run all 7 days with a certain amount of decent occupancy. In most hotels, the local segment that is going to give about 20% of the revenue in a good year. But that 20% is coming is very, very important in terms of revenue, in terms of to have the high occupancies on the weekend, etc. So it's a market that we should pay attention to. It's a market that we should actually develop and then take special care on it. And there's a lot of research that has come in. Some of the local domestic travel has shown some interest in that, once the tourist comes back, they'll get a bad treatment from hotels, or they will be neglected again. All these deals will go out. I think those are very valid concerns that every one of us should address. And this is, 20% of the segment of any business is significant. And I think that's remained as an important element, but it is not enough to sustain our business. We need both domestic as well as international traveler.
And Harpo, when it comes to restaurants as well, I know I visited down south recently, and I found that some of these restaurants were also saying that without foreign tourists, although we are not putting aside the importance of the local tourism industry, without foreigners, that they just can't sustain themselves. Is there something beyond that they need to start looking at now?
See, it's a very good point, because I think it's a good lesson for all of us to learn from this whole pandemic as well. When you put your eggs into one basket, and when that flips, you have a problem, right? But I like what Dilip said before. Before the pandemic and during the 30-year-old war, what did we depend on? We depend on the local tourists. And don't forget, during that 30-year-old war, there were a lot of investments also coming into the restaurant industry. I'm saying personally, I know a lot of restaurant people invested heavily during the 30-year-old war, and there were tourists coming through, but what has happened was when tourism boom started happening, most people put their concentration on tourism per se, look, foreigners. And after the Easter Sunday attack, we suddenly realized we are too dependent on them. And the local economy runs a lot on the local people. You see, it's not only the person at a restaurant, it's the guy who's selling a family outside his restaurant, or the guy who's selling eggs, or the guy who's doing a ride to one of the tourists in a spy shop. You see, so I think it's something that we always must be aware of, is that we shouldn't put our eggs into one basket when it comes to tourism. We should spread it equally amongst the locals as well. Don't forget the locals this time. Were not able to travel overseas. Even last year. There are quite a few numbers of locals who travel overseas during the summer vacations with their children. They go off to Europe or wherever. But obviously, the people who had the cash didn't know where to spend it this time. So they moved into all the hotels, took up villas, took up various locations in the country, and obviously that injection of money coming into the hotels helped a lot. Like, you have to pay for maintenance, salaries. If you close your restaurant, your maintenance cost is so high. See? It's like the restaurants. If you close the restaurants down, when you come back to open them, it's costing you a lot of money. And where do you get this money coming from? Because you are shut down. There's no income. Of course, yes, we were fortunate enough to do delivery. The restaurant business did delivery, but that was just to keep your head above water and pay your staff a bit of salaries or whatever, just to keep them also going. Because don't forget, it's the personnel who keep this industry going. It's the staff who keep our industry going. And without our staff, we are nobody. You can invest big hotels and do so many things. If you don't have your staff to serve, tourism is not going to take off. And what we have to understand, a lot of the people are moving out of tourism because they have not had work for 1.5 years. A lot of people are finding new jobs, doing their own thing. So we are going to have a HR crisis also when it comes to moving forward, because our trained people are moving away. Once Europe or once the Middle East opens up, or once Maldives open up, most of our staff will travel overseas for jobs because they are financially hit. So you're going to have that issue as well. I think the HR aspect of the tourism thing is also hugely important. So like what you asked me was, yes, I think we should not only depend on tourists. We should be able to market ourselves to the locals as well. That's my thinking.
A good point, Harper, you made about retaining people in the industry. I know I've spoken to a few people involved in the industry, and they were saying that they had to close some of these small hotels, some of these restaurants, even staff have looked at opportunities not just out of the country but even out of the industry to survive. And
that's true what you said. If you look at even in the US, in Europe, even big chains like McDonald's and them are finding it difficult to find people, and they're actually doubling their hourly wages now. So it's not only here; it's been felt right around the globe that people are moving out. And your service charges are dropping big time, because we don't forget, a lot of the staff depend on big service charges. So after 2019, that took a big impact on their purse. Most hotels are giving service charge. Restaurants and hotels easily average over 50, 60, 70,000 rupees. Now, for a doorman to get a service charge of 75,000 rupees is a lot of money. And they have based their lives, their education, their children, all on that. So what are they going through right now? So that is a big problem. You see, it's not only it's a service charge. It's at the end of the day, it's the income for the steward or for your gardening, your hotel or a restaurant. They depend on these things. They don't get tips.
Yeah.
Before they used to get a lot of tips as well. So it's a financial nightmare for some of this stuff.
Yeah, that's right. This tips is something a lot of these guys were telling me as well, that without tips they can't survive. Mahen, how do we look beyond this? How do we look at retaining hotel employees, restaurant employees and staff for when we don't have tourists coming in, at least at the moment? Is there something else
Yeah,
that you can?
actually, at the moment, even we DMCs also have the same problem. I think most of the staff who are working in the DMCs, like I said before, have left the trade and gone and joined somewhere else. So we will have a difficulty when we start up again to recruit experienced people. I only hope that we will not have to import trained people for the industry in the future. So we have to retain them in the industry. But to retain that, we need the support from everyone, especially from the local tourism and domestic tourism as well, to patronize our establishments and to go forward. Uh, Coming back again on that, what Kimali was telling about the PCR test. I mean, I don't know why we have to pay in dollars, because the legal currency of the country is rupees, as you all know. And most of 90% of my members are from the SME sector. So they don't have a dollar account, or they don't have, because we get paid from the client only after the client arrives, and perhaps in some cases when he goes back. So we don't have the dollars in stock to go beforehand and pay for the PCR and so on. Whereas if we go directly to a hospital, we could pay in rupees and we could get a receipt and submit it to the SRTDA. And this is a much simpler way and more way. So I think that's why I said we need to have some protocols which are more friendly towards getting in people. Now, I was told yesterday that we are opening a flight to Russia, to Moscow, Sri Lankan Airlines. We have not got any bookings as yet. But why have we not got any bookings? Because our protocols are too strict. I mean, nobody's going to come on holiday and have the 4 or 5 PCRs done, especially the Russians, if you have to get that market. Because at the moment, I think it's only the Russian and the CIS market that we can think of, because the rest of Europe is shut for us, because we are also in a red zone country. And some countries don't allow them to travel to us, or they have this quarantine when they go back. So we have to take this opportunity and try to see whether we can push the Russian market at least for the coming few months. But then again, we have to speak to the health authorities. Now you take the apparel sector, for example. It's one of the #1 sectors here. And I mean, they get everything they want. They go and talk to the health authorities, they get everything, the people are immunized, and they get all the facilities they need. But we being the #2 industry, bringing in so much of foreign exchange, I think we have to make some noise. We have to lobby with the health authority. And of course, I must say the health authority guideline doesn't say that we have to go and pay the SLTDA. It says that you have to pay for 2 PCR tests, but it doesn't say where or what. So as long as we have some proof that we have paid, I think that's good enough to convince the people to get them into the country. It should be a easier way. The methodology should be changed. I think an easier way to get the people into the country.
Kimali, I know the tourism minister just recently was saying something to the fact that they were looking at drawing tourists back into the country, introducing a new system, a better system, if at all, to attract more tourists. So just picking up on where Mahen spoke, I mean, apart from Russia, are we looking at any other markets as well, specific markets?
Actually, before I answer that question, I saw a comment on your chat. Basically, it's kind of a valid and maybe an interesting comment. Somebody has said, if you only focus on Russia, it would put people off against your country. I don't know who commented it, and it's an interesting comment. And I think that that's something that the industry also must be cognizant of. Because if you only pitch that, whether that they would need to tell me, because they are the experts, if that would have an impact, because that's a comment that somebody has made, which I thought is quite interesting. I did have similar comments when we did the pilot project as well. So this is something. So yes, with regards to, basically with the vaccination program growing in Sri Lanka, what we need to do as an industry is pitch to ambassadors in Sri Lanka, whether it is the UK ambassador, whether it's the French ambassador, whether it is the other ambassadors in Europe or anywhere else for that matter, to build their confidence that our country is safe. Because they are the first people who will inform to their governments about the feedback about Sri Lanka. Is it safe? Is it not? They are the people on the ground. Then simultaneously, which we are doing from a regulator perspective, we are in touch with them. But from the industry perspective, it will be useful if they too, sort of in a very professional manner, go and try to, it's not like putting a switch on, right? So you had to build confidence. Number two is we are talking to with our ambassadors, our head of missions in our country, including yesterday I spoke to the UK ambassador, our mission head. So she is talking to, for example, the tourism minister there about removing us from moving us from red to amber. So that has to also happen. Then from India and China. So if you look at our markets, we have pre-COVID, India, China, key markets. India, we've banned at the moment. And China, they've said not to travel, right? The Chinese government has said not to travel. So India, what stage and when would our MOH be comfortable to allow vaccinated Indians to come into Sri Lanka? That's a question which we have to gradually, tactfully, professionally put forward to them, okay? Then we need to pitch the countries that are kind of dissuading their citizens from traveling to our country. So we have to approach them and convince them, and we have to, then of course, as I think all of you probably know, with the global promotion campaign, we are proceeding on. It's a very difficult process. It's very quite time consuming, and it's not like in private company. So there's a long process involved. So that process is moving on. In terms of, so Russia, for example, is there, Germany is there, the France is there, UK is there, Australia is there, Middle East, India, China. Okay, those are the main first markets. And then there are secondary markets. So we will proceed with that. We have also going ahead with international. It's very expensive, but just to be there, to have our advertisement for a month or two, not long because we can't really afford it, is to go to international sort of CNN or BBC or Al Jazeera just to be there, because we noticed that, for example, Maldives is there on and off. So I think on and off, we also need to be there. So we are doing social media on one side, like never before. The huge increase in social media in terms of the following up. So we are using that because it's cheaper also. And to get the bigger reach. So we sponsor a lot of advertisements, even the hotels and anyone who's doing anything good, we sponsor those and in those countries. And so social media is one. We did the live streaming as well. Then the global promotion campaign, which I just explained. Then the buy one free, that whole campaign. Then Russia, which we discussed. And then we have the Sri Lankans returnees and the France, which is also important. But I did notice that in France, the vaccinations that they allow, very specifically France says that there are particular vaccinations only they will allow. So I'm not sure whether what we have given is permitted by them. So these are things that we need to work with them.
Before I move forward, I'd just like to remind all our participants, if anyone wants to raise a question from our panelists, you can click on the raise hand option and we'll take your question. And you can also post a question on Facebook through the comment option. Kimali, about these promotions, I know we did this even soon after the second wave, was it? Or the third wave, where we did a global promotion. We had an event in Colombo as well, before we opened up for tourism.
Oh.
And then we had another hit as well. I mean, while we are targeting and while we are doing all these promotions, do we have, or are we at this time around looking at putting in a system in the event we're hit again, and since there is talk of a fourth wave, what do we do next? How do we, I mean, this is something that we have no control over, of course. I mean, COVID is something that, it's not something that you and I can control, but then how do we deal with this?
I mean, we didn't do a promotion as such. What we did was on the 20th of January, what we did was we said, we are opening the airport, because the airport was closed since March last year, 2020. And in January 21, we opened the airport for international visitors. Okay, so it was launched in the sense that we called the foreign media and we kept them informed. And that when we went on CNN, BBC to keep, we need to inform that our country is open. But something, if that does happen, what your question was, lots of countries have faced that. The whole world is faced with that. So countries keep changing their guidelines. Like that, health also will change their guidelines. We have to abide, we have to go with what they say, and they are taking without their best interest, right? So when people say, there's a comment here, everyone should welcome all tourists. And this is not the time to be choosy, my dear, Paddy Paul has said. With so much restrictions on Sri Lanka and restrictions, look, whoever this person is, thing is, it's the restrictions is not made by Sri Lanka Tourism. Please, I repeat, the restrictions of health guidelines are made by Health Authority. So I need to re-emphasize it to this person that the health guidelines are made by them. If they restrict, we have to abide. It's a criminal offense not to abide by. So let's get that clear once and for all. But to answer your question, that it is, we'll deal with it. And the thing is that I feel that with the vaccinations happening, that it would be less of an issue. And you see that in UK, where majority of people are vaccinated, though they do get COVID, but the death rates have come down. So I think the game changer for Sri Lanka, and we should be grateful to the government, is that very aggressive vaccination program going on. So I think that would really, I truly believe that would be a game changer for us.
Right. Does anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, just to add on to that question where somebody had said, why get the Russians? I think Russians have been coming to Sri Lanka before 2018 as well. So we have had a very good influx of Russian tourists coming to the country. So I don't see why we should not do any promotions with the Russians or the CIS countries. I don't see anything at all. And at this stage, we cannot be choosy as well. But I mean, okay, the Russians come when in the good times. They were using some exclusive hotels for themselves, so that's okay. I mean, as long as they are tourists, we have no objection, and I think we should really encourage them to come in.
I think, yeah, I will add something also into that. The diversity of the nationalities is important to have a high occupancy. So we have what we call the entire winter market, which is December to April predominantly. We have countries from the winter, the European countries are coming in. Then we have a huge off season when Europeans are not coming in from about April to about November. So we need that. Indians, Chinese, and then Russians also have a tendency of traveling in the summer markets as well to countries like Sri Lanka. So it's a mixed strategy that will require. One country itself might not be able to give the required numbers, but we can't go to 200 countries either. But in terms of portfolio, I think we should have these 6, 7, 8 countries we need to really focus on. I think Russia will also be important in those 6, 7 countries. So do the Europeans as well as India, China. So which gives us a portfolio, the mix that we require. But however, also in this post-pandemic area, we need to be very carefully marketed to these countries to understand which countries respond well. And some of the countries will take a little longer to travel, but some of the countries don't care. Some of the peer travelers, they just travel to various destinations provided that they have been accepted. So all this take into consideration to have our short to medium and the long-term strategy and the portfolio strategy is very important to have that.
Has there been an overemphasis on certain countries, Dilip and maybe even Kimali? Initially we were focusing a lot on the Chinese market, and then when COVID happened, that was the first market that dropped out. I mean, are we emphasizing too much on particular markets instead of, broadening ourselves more?
No, I think it's like this, right? I mean, just take a simple example. 2018, we had 2.2 million arrivals. And if you get 20% growth next year, you're looking about 400,000 arrivals more. That's 20% growth is a significant number. This 400,000 tourists, where do you want to get it? Do you want to go to 40 countries and get it? Or you would rather focus on about 10 countries and get it? The number, the 400,000 is easily gettable if you focus on all these 6, 7, 8 countries. So why we need a portfolio? Because we have seasonality. Traditionally, we have a very heavy winter season starting from December. Everything gets fills up, and then by March, April, it dies down. So we need the other markets to come in, the Indians and the Chinese, etc., comes in as well. So we need all these markets to have a balance of the right portfolio and have a basically decent occupancy right throughout. There's no point like we used to have December to April, we have 90% or 100%, and then it comes down to 20, 30%. Then average occupancy for the whole year comes down to 40, 50%. So we need all these markets. I think we shouldn't go to all the markets in the world, but the markets that have been selected, the UK, Germany, France, India, China, Russia, Middle East, and those markets actually make sense for the destination.
Harpo, you want to add something? Is it?
Yeah, you see, Himali was talking about the vaccination thing, which I think is very important. But you see, one thing the health authorities must understand and the tourism board should understand is that, they are talking of vaccinations over 30 years. Don't forget, there are a lot of people working in the industry, the restaurant industry and the hotel industry, who are below 30. So what happens to them? So where is the confidence for people to come into a hotel when your steward or the barman is less than 30 years of age who has not got vaccinated? So I think that's very important that we emphasize the fact that the tourism industry per se, the staff, frontliners, are vaccinated. They are even above 18 years of age. That is a very, very vital thing for any local or foreign or anyone for that matter. That makes it a very, very valid point. Otherwise, you are talking of below 30. It will happen at some point in time, but if you're opening it up now, once the borders also open up and, the locals start traveling into various areas of the country, it's very important that we fast track the people who are below 30 who are in the industry. So I think that's a very, very valid thing. I'm sure Himali should be able to talk to the authorities on that, because those are things that people will ask. And also, it's also important, to going forward, anybody coming to your restaurant or hotel or wherever is that, where you have a program where you show your vaccination, that you've got 2 vaccines. For example, local mark. When you enter a restaurant or hotel where it's a requirement at the reception that you say that you have got your 2 vaccination. So that makes a lot of the confidence factors building on that. So it's important that we bring that aspect also into the restaurant. I think in the hotels as well, that there is a clear thing that they have been vaccinated and that there's some proof or QR code or whatever showing that they have been vaccinated. I think that's very important to look at going forward.
Kimal, you want to say anything on that?
Actually,
I know you're a vaccinated.
Yes, Harpo is totally right. Totally agree with him. Anyway, what has happened is that the 30 and above is a plan which will be completed. Then every Sri Lankan would be get at least 1 dose. Every Sri Lankan will minimum get 1 dose. With regards to, of course, the essential services, all that, they are getting whatever age. The garment industry is also getting whatever age, irrespective of if they're 21, 22 or whatever. So we also have requested, Harpo is totally right, we have already requested that now, for example, the large company called me, actually Shangri-La called, all the people have got over 30, but the people below are not getting. So that doesn't work. Harpo is totally right. So we already have addressed that and said that district by district, whether we can do this in a sense that Colombo is more different maybe, but at least to get the biggest hotel in a particular district. Now, Habarana, for example, Cinnamon is assisting us. So Cinnamon is giving, everyone is going there to get it. So maybe each district we could get staff to go to one of the bigger hotels in that district and get it done. So that would be more practical for us. Absolutely. And if you all notice that even in the media, you saw that the education ministry was not discussing whether to give children the vaccination. So we are getting there. So we, UK has started doing a trial for 5-year-olds to get vaccinations. So even Sri Lanka, they're discussing that. So we haven't forgotten that, Harpo. Excellent point. Totally agree, and we'll follow up. And you guys also do the little bit like lobbying for it in a very professional manner. I think that will also help all of us.
Great. Let's take a question that has been posted on Facebook before we go to some of the guests on Zoom. One question that has been asked from Dinush Tyagarajan is if vaccinations given to Sri Lankans aren't valid in certain countries, what is the possibility that Sri Lanka will be on a red list of most European countries?
Yes, that is a good question, and that we have raised that. Now, for example, some of the vaccines that we are giving, some of the European countries are now gradually approving. I know that in Switzerland, for example, I think the Indian government has approached them, the Swiss government, and asked them why their vaccination, which is Covishield, which we also use, wasn't accepted. And then I think there is now some agreement that they will be accepted. So it's an evolving thing. So a lot of countries will negotiate, I suppose, or lobby or whatever the correct word, to get their particular vaccines accepted. right? So yes, it's not carved in stone, and I cannot give you a complete answer today. But I know that India, for instance, did approach Europe about their vaccination, which we have also given to some of our citizens.
Another question on Facebook is from Asanga Rodrigo, and he's asking, are there any financial benefits hotels would get from the government to retain employees if the pandemic continues?
Actually, I mean, the hotel industry has about 200,000 people employed. Then you add the restaurants, they have 15, 20, 30 people like that, many people involved. So, we are very much aware of this. And Hotels Association, Sanat Ukwat actually gave a decent proposal, which we have discussed it also, to have kind of a SPV to transfer what Dilip was saying, the $35 billion, but rupees, the outstandings into a sort of SPV. Right, and then because these are otherwise you all are dealing with private banks, right, public quoted companies, so they are unable to give you what you all are wanting. So I don't have an answer where yes, I can tell you yes, I would be happy to tell you. We did the cabinet paper to give a wage support scheme, as you know, last year. It was approved, but implementation we need, because we are not the bank, right? So we need the help of banks, the central bank, the treasury to implement that. So if that what Sanat was suggesting, to put that SPV and put all these loans in there and then restructure it, which some countries do that, and I think some of us have done it in our previous careers as well, is that it's possible to do, but then you still do need international funding agency to fund this. Where does the money come from, right? So you'll have to take a foreign currency loan, you swap it to rupees, and in a practical sense, you will have to then pay whatever XYZ banks, you'll have to pay them. You have to take all those sort of the mortgages or whatever guarantees you all have given into this SPV, and this you will be owing money to this SPV. That's what will happen, right? So to do that, there was a discussion actually yesterday, I had to tell you, with the International Funding Agency on this matter. So we are following up on this. We have not forgotten, but that doesn't help the person who asked me the question, because he cannot pay his bills. I know that. So I'm sorry about that. But what is within our control, we are following up and doing it.
Yeah, this came out of this problem of banks being given directions by the authorities, by the government, especially to implement certain things, and it doesn't get done. And I know this is something even small hotels, small restaurateurs have also told me that they are not getting the sort of concessions that they have been promised.
Absolutely. I mean, hotels have staff, lot of staff. You have restaurants, sometimes they are in a rented place, so they can't even give that property. Right. I think for the first time in tourism, we are in communications with the Restaurants Association. I didn't hear them before. I have to tell you. For the first time, we are discussing with event management companies. For the first time, we have given a voice to people who didn't have a voice. So we are talking to people now. There are 54 associations which I talk to daily. They are talking to me regularly. So there are a lot of people who are calling, who are desperate, who we are doing the best we can within our capabilities. Now, the electricity bill, water bill, this has never been done in the history of tourism. We did that. We went to cabinet. For the history of tourism, we never gave licenses for liquor extended. We did that. We went for moratoriums, which was done before. For the first time, we gave a very small amount, I know, but we still did it. For the first time, we gave a small amount, 20,000 to tour guides and 15,000 to drivers. That was the first time. For the first time, we went to give a wage support scheme. So for the first time, we have done a lot. But I know it's not good enough. It never is going to be. And I don't blame any of you, because you all are all in financial trouble. And you have to blame somebody. You have to go and ask somebody. So we understand your pain. We are with you on this. Trust me, we are on your side. And we speak like what you are doing in the industry when we go for these meetings. Trust me, we are the torchbearer. We fly the flag for you, to whether it's for the health, whether it's for financials. We do, right? So be assured about that.
Let me just take a question that popped up on our message on Zoom. ICTA is supposed to assist in providing an electronic QR based vaccine certification for those who have received their vaccines. Is this happening?
Yes, ICTA is making a passport like what I think Harper mentioned before. They are doing that, but we haven't got any details on how they're going to do it and all that, but we will be informed when it's finalized how we will implement it. I would really like to implement it to our tourism industry staff, because if they have it, even their guests, like, with confidence, they can say, look, I'm vaccinated, right? Because currently you have to understand people physically doing this. It is the hotel staff physically having to do these PCR tests and quarantining and all that. It is physically the tour guides who has to wear a PPE in this heat. This driver who has to wear this PPE in this heat. So we understand this, right? So that is why we have asked, I mean, you're talking, we asked for the vaccination of tourism even before garment industry, I have to tell you. We collected over 20,000 names and gave it. This is before garment industry. But you have to understand something. Garment industry has been functioning right throughout, while we were not functioning because the airport was closed for international travelers last year, right? So don't think that, oh, they are treated differently or what. If we couldn't bring tourists, we could not bring tourists, right? From March last year till January this year. So not that the government makes distinction like that. It's just that we could not bring tourists while the garment industry functioned, tea industry functioned. So they had to give vaccinations and sort them out because we had to run an economy, right? So we cannot be a dog in the manger, because what happens is when our airport is closed, we had limited vaccines. You give it to an industry that's functioning. But now the airport is open. And as you know, in Hambantota, the first vaccination program started. And now it's going to Habarana and everywhere else. Right? So if you tell me that if we can have our vaccinations and we do it ourselves, fantastic. But that's not the way it works. There are different ministries, there are different line agencies. So those line agencies make those decisions. We can request, we can ask, we can demand, we can lobby, right? So, but they make the decisions. So, but we are following up on it.
Like you said, Kimali, it's the health authorities who make the decisions. I'd just like to ask maybe Harpo and even Dilip and even Mahen, if you all feel that the health authorities are not really consulting you all when it comes to making some of these decisions. I mean, Harpo, you were talking about, the bars being closed, nightclubs being closed and all that. Your proposals or, are these things that are these being discussed with the health authorities?
If I'm to chip in on that, I think you see, I think the health authorities, as much as they sit with the tourist ministries and the TTA people, I think they need to engage with, for them to get the ground reality, I think. Sometimes even the tourism sector might not actually get the ground reality of the restaurant business, when it comes to simple things like this, So I think they need to engage with the stakeholders as much as I'm sure Kimali and them have a lot on their plate, and even inbound operators. So if you can, when discussions are happening of that nature, I think it's important for us also to be brought into this discussion to simplify things to them. And because the health authorities are like, for them it's no. That's the first thing. Which is fine. But then you got to simplify things also. I know it's a very tight rope you're walking on. But you need to simplify things and make things more practical, make them understand, because for them it's just, no, it's health. That's it. And you cannot let them rule the roost. There has to be some kind of give and take here. I guess we respect it, and you have to be a little bit flexible here. Like I said from the outset of the discussion, we all have FL level licenses. So how do they come up and say you can't run a nightclub or you can't run a bar? Bar serves food or a burger or a sandwich or something like that. So it's a FL11 restaurant. How do they say that? And then you have the local police coming at you saying, you can't do this, you can't. So from a restaurant point of view, even the police are confused, the authorities are confused because they are going in that saying, oh, you have a bar. No, a bar and a restaurant. So these are things, little things I think they need to understand. They need to, because you see, if the tourists want to come to the country, the first thing they look at, can we visit these places? Are these places open for us? It's not like just going and sticking yourself in a room in a hotel, you know. They also need to explore the country, see what it's all about, you know. When they see all these closed, oh no, we shouldn't be going there. We should go there once it's open.
Yeah, if I can come in, I tend to agree with Papu on that. In fact, I think the health department should engage the stakeholders also. In fact, we had a very good meeting this week with the health department, Slito and Tussle. It was very good, and they really understood when we explained to them our problems. Of course, SLTDA has been, I think, engaging them maybe on a daily basis. But I think when we go and talk, we come to the point, and they also begin to realize what our issues are in real life. So I think that's a very good move and a very good thing that we should engage them more in the future to make them realize and understand what our industry is all about.
With your permission, actually, the last year when the airport was closed and we were trying to be prepared to open it and the guidelines will be made, many of the industry, not many, but the Slito president, Hotels Association president were called many times. And the chairperson of the minister's advisory committee was called many times to meet health officials. And the ministry, I was there, Honorable Minister was there, Mr. Hettiarachi was there. They met the Minister of Health as well as the whole health structure. And I have to say that the private sector kind of walked out saying they are going to give up. They don't want to meet these people anymore. This was last year, I had to tell you. They kind of gave up. But then, since then, I think the health understands how tourism works, and we also understand that how health works. So now we find that there's more better dialogue, and people are giving input to this and this. But sometimes we don't achieve. Now, for example, event management, I'm very sorry for this, because we are allowing weddings to be held with 150 people with 25% capacity, but we say no to events. But what is an event is, in a way, for me, better, because a business event, because you don't kiss and dance and hug. So we should be allowing them. So these are a little bit we have raised it, escalated this matter now, because actually we cannot justify it them. So they too, the thing with tourism is that there are so many people impacted. If you take events, there are so many stakeholders impacted. If you take, if you take restaurants, so many are impacted. So we are doing our best to, while balancing not getting or creating COVID, we have to understand that there was 190 people who got PCR positive when they came, which is out of 18,000, which is nothing. It's a decimal. But always health remembers that the first person to have got COVID was a tour guide. We must not forget. The first person in Sri Lankan citizen who got COVID in Sri Lanka in March last year was a tour guide. We may have all forgotten, or some of us may have forgotten. The first person who died in Sri Lanka from COVID also was a tour guide. Okay, these are the people who are with the guests, right? These are the people who are with the guests, right? So maybe health has that in their mind as well. That's how they got it. So so we are working with them, and I'm glad to see that all three panelists here, and I'm so grateful that all three panelists agree that we should work together. We should talk to health. You can individually go and lobby and whatever. Please do that, so that we work together and open up Sri Lanka and have a sustainable tourism zone.
With just a few minutes left, I would like to remind our participants, if they want to raise any questions, you can click on the raise hand option and we will put you on. Dilip, what's the future like now? What do you think is going to happen next where the hotel industry is concerned? We saw a number of new hotels also coming up, and then suddenly, their operations also stalled. What next for the hotel industry?
And the next one is that, everyone believes in this industry. The reason is that there is about 1.2 billion people in the world who are traveling to various countries. And what we have seen is, after a pandemic or any kind of a disaster, any disaster, then the people, it's basically always a V-curve kind of a growth that you can see. And we have seen that around the world. And that's the trend. And that's the intuition we all have, and that's why we even talking about it. And that's the confidence we all have. So the tourism industry will bounce back. But the question here is that how long we can survive. It's not easy. So when you have 200 people in your payroll, and when you have to pay your salaries another month, and when there's no revenue coming in, you will really feel it when you have to borrow from banks and pay. So that's a huge issue. I think that issue not only for hotels, but everyone in the entire industry, not only Sri Lanka, rest of the parts as well. So we need to find some solution to how we can actually give some assistance to these people, so that we need these hotels. The hotels can add a lot of value to the whole industry when it comes to maybe a 3-star or a 5-star. It can always actually add that little bit of nostalgic reasons for people to visit. So it's very important to safeguard that industry, and also we have over 200,000 people employed. So to maintain that is very important. So looking at the future, I mean, realistically, it's very difficult to predict anything. All the predictions here has actually gone wrong. We had scenarios 1, 2, 3 months, 6 months, even UNWTO predictions have really not really worked. So it's very difficult to predict. That's what is the reality is. But it's quite obvious that in this year we will not be able to expect a huge recovery as we predicted in 2021. So the prediction is basically when we go back to the pre-COVID area, we're looking at about 2023. 22 would be something which we can come out, but we don't know what's going to happen on the fourth wave, or there's another variation, lambda, or whatever you call it, and we don't know what variations to come in. So the issue here is this pandemic is not over yet completely. So in that scenario, what is the strategy that we're going to have to survive is something very important to understand. And I think everyone in the industry, maybe a hotelier or DMC or a service provider, has pulled all their strengths and all their resources to survive. And somehow I know some people have sold their properties, some people have sold their vehicles. So it's a very serious situation. And recovery is not, I wouldn't expect the recovery to come this year completely. It will be slow and it will take time. And also it's very important that, unless and until we have a conducive visiting environment, people do not want to visit as well. Now, for example, geographically, Maldives is an example that we can take it. They are slightly better off because islands are isolated, but they have policy, and you see the numbers coming into Maldives. But then unfortunately, Sri Lanka doesn't have that isolation process, separate islands. So on the other hand, health authorities also may face an issue of complete relaxation, but without that relaxation, it's no matter how you do promotion, people are going to come to Sri Lanka, because people are going to work on it. But in the recent part, what has happened in the last 2 weeks, relaxation is a right step in the right direction. And if you can, I believe we will have some positive outcome coming in. But the wait this time is going to be longer than we expected.
Since we're almost at 12 o'clock, we might have to end this soon. Any closing remarks? Maybe we can start with Harpo. And
I think we all need to work together. I think the more we are together, the more ideas come together. We shouldn't alienate ourselves, and I'm happy that SLTDA has got so many associations together, which I think is very, very important. Like Kimali said, every day they are learning new things, and that's the only way forward. I mean, from what we have gone through over the last 1.5 years, I think we have come out stronger in our own businesses, because we have learned a lot. We have taken things for granted too much as well, and it's new things we are learning. So I think the industry, what has happened is that we all come together as an industry, which I think is the greatest thing out of COVID. And I think we have to stay positive. And the more positive we are, better things are going to happen. That's my parting line to all of you guys.
Yes, if I may also, I agree with Harpo. We have to be united. We have to work forward. We have to change the perception about tourism among the locals as well as we go along. I think unity is the most important thing. And also, maybe we should talk more with the SLTDA to see with the health authorities how we can bring down these guidelines and the protocols to a more friendlier way, a user-friendly way than the way it is right now. Thank you.
Dilip, do you want to say anything else, or shall we move on to Kimali?
Yeah, I think, fully endorse. I think working together in all the stakeholders is only way forward. I think we should have this dialogue and discussions quite often. and then use our all context and the strategy and the minds together to come out of it as we have done that in the past.
Kimali, we'll
Thank you for the opportunity. I totally agree with all the panelists here. Let's work together. Let's do it. Don't think that we are alienating you or not. It's not at all. For us, we are looking to bring foreign exchange into the country. That is the goal. That is the ultimate goal. Whether it is any country, whether it is wherever you come from, that's our goal. We are working on several initiatives, which is on the travel app. We are working on sustainability issues, which I don't have time to tell you, but maybe another time. We are working on experiences with the line agencies, and there are several areas that we are working on. And I think I appeal to also the industry stakeholders, try to get younger generation also involved, who are doing a lot of experiences, whether it is kite surfing or whether it is, all these experiences. I think that we need to incorporate, get them involved in the digital side of things, and embrace digital, because that's the future. I know we have to charge online travel agents going forward for the taxes, but we need to embrace them because they have amazing reach. And the government came into power looking at a people-centric economy. Most of our industry, 75% is SME really. So they are, most of them, working with online travel agents as well. So travel agents, don't think that, Mahen, you made a comment, please be assured, I want to work with you. I want to work with the Hotels Association. I would like to work with Restaurants Associations and all the associations, because for me and for my team who work very long hours, for us, success is when tourism comes in and when Sri Lanka gets US dollars into our country. That's what, for me, success. It doesn't matter who brings them. Okay, so please be assured you have 100% commitment to make you all succeed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kimali. Thank you, Harpo. Thank you, Dilip and Mahen. Thank you for taking time and joining us for this discussion. Thank you to all our participants who joined us via Zoom, as well as those who are following on Facebook and YouTube. We hope that the industry will pick up very soon. We hope that things will get back to normal. A big thank you to the Daily Mirror team working behind the scenes to put on this production together as well. And till we join you next time with another discussion, have a good day. Bye for now.